Welcome into Pac-12 review. And man, I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving weekend, family, friends, maybe some shopping. I don't know if you partake in that madness, but if you do, I hope it was awesome. It was an insane rivalry weekend, to say the least, in the Pac-12. And it never shocks me how insanely awesome that rivalry weekend is, and just the madness and the chaos. I've been saying it's been chaos for a few weeks, and it's not to oversell it. It has been chaos, especially at the top of the standings. The one thing we knew this weekend, coming into this weekend, was that USC was already in the Pac-12 Championship Game. But they had a big matchup against Notre Dame, obviously a big national rival there, has been for a very long time. They played Notre Dame in Southern California, but they already had locked in their spot in the Pac-12 Championship Game. So Oregon, Utah, and Washington, all had their shots. Oregon controlled it the most. If they went out, obviously, after that big win over Utah last week, Oregon controlled their destiny. Utah had Colorado, and there were people that needed Colorado to win, or fans that were rooting for Colorado to win, but that did not even come close to happening. Washington needed to beat Washington State in the Apple Cup and hope for an Oregon loss, and also Utah, obviously, to lose because of tiebreakers. But we'll get into all that madness. That being said, it was, and yes, the Territorial Cup. Yeah, the Territorial Cup. Congratulations to Arizona. They won for the first time in 6 years. It was back and forth, and yes, there were mistakes both ways. It was a little bit opposite of what I thought each team would do. So again, just goes to show you, in a rivalry game, you don't know with the strategies. That U of A rushed the ball very, very well. Trenton Bourguet was throwing the ball all over the field. So it was like I said, a little bit opposite of what I thought it would be. That being said, Arizona did win that game 38-35. We'll get into it. And yes, a new coach in Tempe already. David Shaw steps down at Stanford, and they lost their top commit. Well, and look, he still could recommit, but as of now, Stanford's top commit in the 2023 class has seemingly reopened his recruitment. So that was very interesting. And it was a tough year for Stanford, we know, but one tough year. And again, boosters, fans, I'm not saying that they don't overreact or don't know what they're talking about, but yeah, as for David Shaw, to me, it's one of those things that, and look, maybe he wants a new challenge. I get it. And when you have, and at the college level, barring the transfer portal and guys coming in and out, what you have coming in, but recruiting wise, sometimes, those seniors need to hear a new voice. But for David Shaw, man, whoever wraps him up, or you know what, maybe he goes to the NFL, because I know for years he's been part of the NFL Network's draft coverage, and you just hear how glowingly, and yes, he's there breaking down college players and seeing what it'll be, but you hear how glowingly they talk, and just like his knowledge, to overstate the obvious, of football. But David Shaw, again, one of my favorite coaches in the conference, taking over after Jim Harbaugh had left Stanford for the NFL. And now, obviously, Harbaugh back at Michigan, and congrats to them for smashing Ohio State. Very beautiful to see. Love seeing that, every second of that. But also, yeah, there was, Stanford stepped down. They dropped their last game to BYU. They close out the season with the Cougars. But yeah, in Colorado, we'll see what happens there. Allegedly, they have offered the job to Jackson State's Deion Sanders. We'll get into all that. Again, still going to have a show on Friday because we have the Pac-12 Championship game to talk about. So that being said, let's look at the results this past weekend. And it started Friday, the day after everybody celebrated Thanksgiving, and I'm sure was very stuffed and full and all that good stuff. But UCLA, I thought they would run away with this game. Cal was up 21-17 at the half, and UCLA outscored them 18-7 in the second half. The Bruins hold on for the 35-28 victory. Like I said, Friday down in Tucson. U of A wins 38-35, first time in 6 years that the Territorial Cup is down in Arizona. Little dust up towards the end of the game. There's a lot of chippiness, and again, you love to see passion in a rivalry game. You don't need to see emotion. You don't need to see guys trying to get other guys ejected. Guys were ejected. It was the end of the game. It was a little tough, but the action inevitably was awesome. So 38-35, that score. And then Saturday, USC beats Notre Dame 38-27. They were in control of that game the whole time, were the Trojans. A huge win for them. We'll get to the rankings in a second, standings and rankings in a second. Obviously, they were already in the Pac-12 championship game, but Caleb Williams with another solid game for the Trojans. They ran the ball all over Notre Dame as well, too. So the madness starts with this. Oregon State was down 31-17 at the end of the third quarter. The Beavers down to the Ducks in this huge rivalry game. They outscored Oregon 21-3 in the fourth quarter. The Beavers get the 38-34 victory in their rivalry game. And man, it was not what Oregon fans were thinking. They had their flights booked, bags packed, headed to Vegas for the Pac-12 championship game. And as homage to Mr. Lee Corso, the Beavers said, "Not so fast, my friend." And they get the 38-34 victory. The other game that had huge implications in this, the Huskies just put it on the Cougars 51-33 over in Pullman, as Washington just demolishes Washington State, shutting them out in the fourth quarter, 16-0. And the second halves have been the kind of the kryptonite for Washington State, not all season long, but the second half of the season, the second halves of games have been just not solid for Washington State. So they dropped that Apple Cup 51-33 to the Huskies. Utah, well, I said they put up 55. They put up 63, but Colorado put up more than 7. Colorado put up 21 points as they won. Utah won 63-21, just blasted them. Yeah. And like I mentioned, Stanford fell to BYU 35-28. And it was again, David Shaw, like I said, stepped down. ASU, they hired Coach Guano, obviously was the interim coach, but Kenny Dillingham, an ASU alum, a Valley native. He started his coaching trek. Even coaching at Chaparral with an assistant, and hopefully we're efforting to get Chris Cartman on to talk about this, the publisher of Sun Devil Source for 24/7. Follow him on Twitter at Chris Cartman on Twitter. So, yes, but Kenny Dillingham, the youngest Power 5 coach, 32 years old, spent the last year as the offensive coordinator in the Pac-12 at Oregon, who had a phenomenal offense. But yes, I'm going to take a quick break. And when we get back, I'm going to dive into that Oregon State game, give you the breakdown. If you, for some reason, missed it, you missed one hell of a game. And we'll also get into the Apple Cup, Washington and Washington State here on Pac-12 Review. We'll be back right after this. All right, we are back here on Pac-12 Review here on the Sideline Sports Network. Again, shout out to all my peeps at Sideline Sports. And again, we always hoping everybody had a great Thanksgiving weekend as we now just charge into December conference championship games and even better, the holiday season. So, yeah, went over the scores. So the standings, how the Pac-12 finished up. USC, again, tops in the Pac-12, 8-1 overall, 8-1 in the conference play. I always see that. 8-1 in conference play, 11-1 overall for the Trojans. The Huskies, they finish at 7-2. Well, the Huskies, the Ducks, and the Utes all finish at 7-2. Washington, their season record at 10-2. Oregon and Utah at 9-3 overall. Oregon State, the Beavers, with their upset of Oregon. Oregon State with their win over the Beavers, with their win over the Ducks, they finish at 6-3 in conference play, as does UCLA after beating Cal. They are 6-3 as well. Both the Beavers and the Bruins at 9-3 overall. The Cougs, well, they go under 500 in conference play. They're 4-5, but they are 7-5 overall on the season. Arizona with their win over Arizona State, 3-6 in conference play, 5-7 overall. Cal, the Golden Bears, and the Sun Devils, both 2-7 in conference play. Cal 4-8 overall. The Devils 3-9 overall. Their worst winning percentage since 1946. Shout out to my guy, Chris Cartman, who it'd been a long time since they had a winning percentage this low. And yes, it is a very long time. So 1946, but the Devils finished 3-9 overall. Stanford and Colorado, both 1-8 in conference play. The Cardinal 3-9 on the season. The Buffaloes 1-11 on the season. And like I said, we'll see who is going to be the Stanford head coach, along with the Colorado head coach as well. So that's where the teams finished up standings wise. And when we look at when we look at the rankings, when we look at the rankings, the AP rankings that came out yesterday, and man, it's a little flustering, but encouraging too, because Michigan, Georgia's number one, they finished 12-0. Michigan just absolutely dismantled beat down Ohio State on their home field in Ohio. Michigan crushes them. And in the second half, too. It's fresh in your memory. They ran away. Michigan goes up to number 2, up one spot. TCU goes up one spot. They finished 12-0. They're number 3. USC goes to number 4. And yet, thanks to Texas A&M for smacking around LSU, which, again, LSU had a good season, still said all season long they're not better than USC. And the fact that in the college football playoff, in the CFP playoff polls, that even after last week's games, that LSU is above USC, had no business being there. And it's just pathetic because LSU gets smashed by a unranked Texas A&M team. Smashed, right? Oh, and because it's on the road, SEC, we give them a break. They only drop 5 spots. They're ahead of Utah, which they shouldn't be. Should not be. Sorry. Like, SEC homer, you can find me. You know where to find me here on Twitter, at Diablo00. But that being said, AP, so the top 4, Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC. Ohio State only dropped 3 spots to 5 after getting bludgeoned at home. Yeah, okay, we want to use the old cliche of a rivalry game and throw records out the window. Ohio State dominated this series for over a decade. And now it's, of course, just an excuse to keep Ohio State lurking around the playoff because of the Pac-12 Championship, the Big 12 Championship. To me, it's ridiculous. Even if they're at 5. Alabama's at 6. They're ahead of Tennessee, which they shouldn't be because, I'm sorry, Tennessee owned them. But it's always an excuse, too, for Alabama. Tennessee's at 7. Penn State at 8. The Huskies, they jumped 3 spots. They are up to number 9 after their win over Washington State. Clemson only drops 3 after their loss to South Carolina, who, was unranked and is now 20. So Clemson's at 10. LSU, again, only dropped to 11 after a pathetic loss. Pathetic to an A&M team that has done nothing all year. And I think now has won 5 games on the season, well under 500. And they absolutely owned LSU, but they only dropped 5 spots. Sorry, should have been at least 8 or 9. 8 or 9, easy. Utah at number 12. Kansas State, 13. Florida State at 14. And, of course, that helps LSU because Florida State beat LSU in the beginning of the season. Even though, hey, whatever, missed extra point, guess what? It's part of the game. You lost, and it had to come down to that. So Florida State at 14. Oregon, with their loss, drops, of course, 5 spots to 15. But yet, Ohio State only drops 3. Definitely should have at least – they should be below Tennessee. I don't care if they're 11-1. They should be below Tennessee. So, yeah, Florida State at 14. Oregon at 15. Oregon State, yes, they beat Oregon, but they jumped 6 spots. They're at 16. UCLA, after their win over Cal, they stayed at number 17. So, SEC teams get rewarded for beating nobodies. UCLA beat a Cal team who I've talked about has been inconsistent, yes, but it's in their conference. It's a Power 5 team, and yet, UCLA stays at the same spot in the AP. It's just, pathetic. But inevitably, half the conference is in the top 25. Hopefully, the CFP playoffs get those right because Washington, and again, Penn State, they had a tough loss to Ohio State. Yes, they lost to Michigan. And Michigan ran the ball all over them, too. Blake Corum, again, who, didn't play, but they still destroyed Ohio State. So, look, 6 of the Pac-12, that part to me is awesome. UCLA, again, at 17. Oregon State at 16. Oregon at 15. Utah at 12. Washington at 9. SC at 4. So, you'll take it. You'll take it with what the rankings have been. When we go back now, the college football playoffs, I know you Wiley college fans know that they don't come out till tomorrow night, but say goodbye to Ohio State at number 2 and say goodbye to LSU at number 5. And I really do think that LSU losing to A&M, because right now the college football rankings coming into this weekend. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU. LSU was 5, SC was 6, Bama 7, Clemson 8. So Oregon 9, Tennessee 10, which is very interesting. Tennessee won, Oregon loses. But Washington with their win, Kansas State with their win. I know Penn State won as well. Tennessee won. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Bama. Well, SC should, look, I think the top 4 should be Georgia. My bashing of the SEC, Georgia still yes, they've had scares, but they've also taken care of business. Georgia should be 1. I would have Michigan definitely at 2. You can almost argue for Michigan at 1, but with Georgia's defense, Michigan's offense at the line, that's tough. Georgia 1, Michigan 2. But if you went Michigan 1 and Georgia 2, I don't see an issue with that either. I honestly really don't. And even if it was worthless Ohio State, if they had beat Michigan like that, I would say the same thing, that I would have no problem with them, them and Georgia being 1 and 2. But let's just say since Georgia's been 1 the whole time, the committee's not going to move them. So Georgia 1, Michigan 2. Now, look, being a Pac-12 homer, I say this is my homer point. SC should be number 3, and then TCU 4. But TCU's taking care of business. They've scored on everybody defensively. So let's just say non-homer side, TCU bumps up to 3. SC goes to 4. LSU should be below Washington. I really, again, they're 9-3. They lost to a A&M team who, showed flashes, but was pretty much just a punching bag in conference this season. So go ahead, SEC fans, talk out of both sides of your mouth. Make an excuse why your great LSU team couldn't win on the road. That being said, I think LSU, they'll definitely drop below Bama, even though they beat Bama. But again, 3 losses. They should drop below Bama. Clemson, no, they should be, Oregon lost. Below Tennessee. I think they should be below Washington. However they mix it up, I think LSU should be punched the most down the rankings. And we'll see what, again, Notre Dame, they were at 15. So again, they lost to SC. Technically, they shouldn't drop much because they were supposed to lose to SC. But again, it's one of those things. We'll see what happens on Tuesday. But I'm telling you, if Ohio State is sitting at 5, it is an absolute joke. An absolute joke. There I am on Twitter at Diablo00. And I don't make excuses when any conference, including this conference, when you play certain games, and everybody's been doing this since the beginning of time, but especially when you play late in the season, Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn. Do I need to keep going? Because I know Austin Peay is, wow. Austin Peay, the powerhouse. My respects to Austin Peay fans. So that's where we're at rankings-wise, but let's get into it. Let's get into the review, because if you missed any of these games, friends, my friends, kids, you are definitely you definitely missed out. You definitely missed out on some insane rivalry games and implications, yes. Major implications too, but rivalry games as well. So let's do it. Let's start with Oregon and Oregon State. The Ducks travel from Eugene to Corvallis. Little ride there for the Ducks, and it's a dominant first half. I shouldn't say dominant. It's a close first half. Oregon State was up 10-7 after the first. The Ducks kept the Beavers out of the end zone in the second, and they outscored them 7-0. So it's 14-10 at halftime, right? Then the Ducks have a little bit of an offensive explosion in the third quarter. They put up 17 points And they outscore Oregon State 17-7. So it's 31-17. Like I said, going into the fourth quarter, you're thinking, look, we know the Ducks want to probably try and sit on the ball, and they can definitely run it. We know they can run the ball, as they've done this year, as Dan Lanning has shown, as with Bo Nix running the offense. Kenny Dillingham, who, yes, was the offensive coordinator, now the new head coach at Arizona State, and the youngest in the Power Five. But being said, so you figure they're going to run the ball. Yes, they're going to throw it a little bit. Bo Nix, again, hasn't been extremely mobile, a little banged up the last few weeks, but able, again, to get the win against Utah, needing the rivalry game to go to the Pac-12 Championship Game. But the Beavers just shove the ball down the throats of the Ducks. They ran the ball. Their last 5 series, Oregon State did not throw one pass. Let that marinate. Oregon State did not throw one pass. And in college football, that's why I say let that marinate. Even crazier in college football. Yes, if you're running the ball very well, you know they're still going to stack the box at some point. You're going to be able to throw the ball. Oregon State, 19 carries for 143 yards and 4 touchdowns on their final 5 drives. Did not throw the football their last 5 drives. That's in college football. I mean, honestly, like, I don't mean to look shocked, because if you're doing something very well, it's the old adage, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If they're not shutting down the run, you're getting 7, 8, 12, 15 yards a play, huge chunk yardage. You're not going to stop running the ball, but the Oregon defense could not stop it. 19 for 143 and 4 rushing touchdowns for the Beavers. In a rivalry game, in any game, that's crazy. In this rivalry game and what it meant for Oregon and Oregon State, they've had a hell of a season. I mean, Justin Smith coming in, taking over 9-3 overall in your first year, 6-3 in conference play. Yes, it's not a conference championship. Yes, it's but you see the improvements, and we all know putting up bigger winning numbers leads to recruiting and the whole transfer portal, but that's a show for another day. Nonetheless, Ben Branson, to prove this, look at this, 6 for 13 on the day. Their quarterback, again, who has stepped in and done a good job, been able to throw the ball pretty decently, but they only called 13 passing plays all game. 6 for 13, 60 yards. No touchdowns. He did throw 2 picks. And yes, that is the elongated answer as to why they only ran the ball the last 4 series. But still, 6 for 13, 60 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Now rushing. I talked about Damian Martinez, obviously, after the ASU Oregon State game last week. But I've been talking about Damian Martinez, again, the conference of a very, very, very good running back, solid running backs. Martinez, 15 carries, 103 yards, 6.9 per touch. Okay, what about Jam Griffin, you ask? I will tell you, 8 carries for 75 yards, 9.4 per rush. Neither one of those, Martinez or Griffin, had a rushing touchdown. Deshaun Fenwick, 8 carries for 53 yards, 6.6 per carry, 1 rushing touchdown. Isaiah Newell, he only had 2 carries for 21 yards, but still averaged 10.5 per carry, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns. Ben Branson wasn't passing. He had 4 carries for 7 yards, and I know sacks go into that. Oregon only had 1 sack and 1 tackle for loss, but Ben Branson, 4 carries, kids, 7 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. So you get 5 rushing touchdowns, no passing touchdowns from Oregon State. 5 rushing touchdowns, 1 field goal. They just blast the Ducks in the fourth quarter because, yes, if you run the ball and you're getting those chunk yardage on the game, 43 carries for 268 yards. That is 6.2 per rush. So every other handoff, you're getting a first down. You're getting a new first down. Insane. 268 yards rushing against this Oregon defense, which has been disciplined, athletic. We haven't seen them giving up yards like this, rushing yards like this, and since the first game of the season when they lost to Georgia in Atlanta. And Dan Lanning, I mean, they definitely had turned it around. So, or not turned it around, but just found their rhythm and offensively, defensively playing very good complementary football. So Oregon State, man, hats off to them. You look at what Oregon did. I mean, Bo Nix threw 41 passes, 27 of 41, good day, 327 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Rushing wise, they rushed for 143 yards. Okay, compared to 268, overstate the obvious, as we know. Not great, but 143 yards rushing. You figure 327 passing. You're all right. That's winning numbers right there, but only 3 points in the fourth quarter. The Oregon State defense just balled out. And like I said, rushing, Noah Whittington, not for lack of trying, 16 carries, 81 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Bucky Irving had 13 carries for 52 yards, no touchdowns. And then Jordan James, he had 9 carries for 26 yards and the other rushing touchdown. So it's it's crazy to me that 143 yards, and I mean receiving wise, Chase Cota, well, he was the gold medal winner for Oregon as he had 9 receptions for 136 yards, averaging 15.1 per reception. He did have a receiving touchdown, as did Troy Franklin. And Franklin had 8 catches for 78 yards, and Bucky Irving even chimed in, the running back, 5 catches for 26 yards. And so 327 yards, Oregon. The 2 interceptions, Jeffrey Bassa had 1, and then Christian Gonzalez had the other interception. So you look at that. You have a quarterback that doesn't throw for even 100, throws for 60 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions against a team like Oregon. Even if Oregon State's rushing the ball, you figure they're gonna adjust, they're gonna stop it. They're not gonna collapse on a 31-17 lead in the fourth quarter and get outscored 21-3 to lose by the 4 points. And when we look at stats in college football to close out after the regular season, Oregon, 4th in the country, 507.8 yards per game. 507.8 yards per game for the Ducks, 4th in the country. And actually, the Pac-12 had the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th spots in offense in the country. Yeah, the Pac-12 did. Oh, I know, but all their opponents, and they did it to each other, but all their opponents are soft. But, other conferences, their opponents aren't soft. No, not at all. But nonetheless, Oregon State, hey, congratulations to the Beavers. You definitely ruined Thanksgiving weekend for Ducks fans who are now waiting to see what bowl they'll be in, because they'll be in a very good bowl, but not headed to the Pac-12 Championship. Check 1. So the next game we're going to get to as we roll on here on Pac-12 review, the next game we are getting to is the Apple Cup. Oh, the Cougars last year planting the flag in the middle of the field at Husky Stadium after they beat up on the Huskies. And it wasn't a good no rivalry loss is ever a good taste for fans. Makes the drinks after the game taste worse. Food after the game, food for the next 364 days just doesn't taste the same. Well, it doesn't, but once the season starts, so for 254 days, it tastes worse. But inevitably, that being said, Washington State planted the flag last year on their Cougar flag on Huskies Field. Well, this year the Huskies said, you know what? New coach. Well, both teams even though Coach Dickert took over last year, Washington State, but getting a full-time job. New coach, For Washington, Kalen DeBoer comes in, like I said, from Fresno State, has done a phenomenal job. Well, the Huskies get their revenge. So, dogs, you can be happy. 51-33. And Washington State, they were shut out in the fourth quarter. 27 points in the first half, looking good, but only 6 in the second half, and all 6 of those points coming in the third quarter. The Huskies down 10-7 after one, but up by 1 at half. They were up 28-27 at halftime, and the Huskies never looked back, outscoring the third quarter. A little defensive battle, but 7-6. The Huskies outscore the Cougars, and then 16-0 in the fourth. Washington just controls it, runs away with it, and they get the 51-33 victory. Michael Penix Jr., who very well for college football awards, again, not probably going to be in the talk for the Heisman because, your team only went 10-2. I say that sarcastically, but with big wins over Oregon. Yes, Oregon State beat them. But again, if you're going to talk rivalry game in the SEC or the Big Ten and throw it out the window, again, I'm not talking on both sides of my mouth. So either we are or we aren't. Either one's fine with me. So Michael Penix Jr., though, 25 for 43, 485 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yes, he did have a blemish. He did throw 1 interception. And this young man, again, phenomenal all year, wire to wire, pretty much leading the conference and the nation in yards, in passing yards. Another 3 touchdowns. By the way, he threw for 3. He rushed for 2. And yes, he caught 1 on a trick play. And I don't know why it's not up there. But nonetheless, it was a trick play. It was phenomenal. But Michael Penix Jr., again, 3 passing, 2 rushing, and 485 yards. I mean, almost throwing for what Washington is averaging. And check this. They ran the ball in the second half. Again, they were trying to Kalen DeBoer chewing up clock. But Wayne Talapapa had a bust-out game, 13 carries. You say, only 13 carries? Yeah, only 13, but 126 yards, 9.7 per carry, averaging just about a first down per carry, and 1 rushing touchdown. Cameron Davis, 6 for 55. Michael Penix Jr., like I said, he had 2 carries for 34 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And receiving-wise, Rome Odunze, this young man, I talked about him all year. When he's been in, him and Jalen McMillan, again, both 1 and 2. But Rome Odunze, 5 catches, 157 yards, 31.4 per reception. Yes, he is that good of a receiver. The Washington State secondary is not that bad. And again, I'm going to stop taking shots at other things, focus on this. But 31.4 per reception, 1 receiving touchdown. Jalen McMillan, he had 6 catches for 150 yards, 25 yards per reception, 1 touchdown. Jalen Polk, 4 for 82 for that young man, 20 and a half yards of reception, and the other of the 3 receiving touchdowns for the Huskies. 25 receptions. They called 43 pass plays, but 25 receptions for 485 yards, 19.4 per reception. This offense will do this to any defense in the country. Hear me out, people. Hear what I'm saying. Washington's offense would do this to any team in the country. I'm not saying they'd put up 51, but the yardage, they'd dump it over Ohio State. They would dump it on Michigan, Alabama, Tennessee. Hell, they would move it on Georgia too. You don't have a finely tuned offense like this and you just put up goose eggs. No. You would do that, but they rushed for 218 yards. I said all season long, if they ran the ball more, yes, that means you're taking 1 more pass play call away, but they ran the ball when they could. Or if they ran the ball more, even in the beginning of games, trying to establish a lead, you definitely would, you would be very happy with that. So insane. 218 yards rushing, 485 through the air. Cameron Ward he had 33 of 52. 322 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks for Cameron Ward, who, and he has had a heck of a season as well for the Cougars. Not to the level of Michael Penix Jr., but not many have had the season to the level of Michael Penix Jr. So yeah, and then Nick Harbor on a trick play was 1 for 1 for 36 yards. So, but again, 53 pass plays called to just 36 run plays. But Nakia Watson, 15 for 73, 1 rushing touchdown. Cam Ward had 16 carries for -5 yards, but he did have a rushing touchdown. But yeah, they only rushed for 75 yards. So there's your difference. Big difference in the game. Receiving rise, Robert Farrell, 4 for 71. Receiving touchdown, Deshaun Stribling, 7 for 58. Leighton Smithson, 7 for 58 as well. Nakia Watson, 7 for 41. So you see, again, they have multiple weapons, both teams. Overstate the obvious, but Cameron Ward just moving the ball around and getting it done. But yeah, they 34 for 358. They averaged 10.5 per reception. That's really good. That's a first down too. Washington just averaged just about double that. So it's insane to me. Sack wise, because the Huskies, we know that they were battling the Trojans for the lead in sacks in the conference. Sack wise, the Huskies had 6 sacks on the game, 11 tackles for losses. And the big difference, because you know me, yes, we're talking crazy offense, but the big defense, 0, double zeros for Washington State. No sacks and no tackles for losses, not one. And when you get 6 sacks in a game, yeah, you're and they did that actually. Washington bookended that. Kind of bookended it, but Stanford, when they played Stanford, they also had 6 sacks against Stanford in the beginning of the Pac-12 in the beginning of conference play. So, but again, another 6 sacks, 11 tackles for losses. Derek Langford Jr. did have the interception of Michael Penix Jr. On that, and Peyton Henry, 1 for 1 on field goals and 6 for 7. He did have a blemish, 6 for 7 on extra points for Peyton. No, he had a phenomenal season. Everybody always wants to pick on a kicker, which is just ridiculous. But and they only punted 1 time. Jack McAllister for Washington only had a punt 1 time. Granted, Washington State only punted 4 times, but still only punting 1 time in the game. That's pretty amazing. But yeah, when we're looking at the final, like the college football stats, Michael Penix Jr., number 1 in the country, 4,354 yards passing, number 1 in yards. Overall, and when you look at again, what they were able to do, but yeah, number 1, he's number 1 in yards, and he had just, look at the season that Michael Penix Jr. had. It was amongst the leaders, like I said, number 1 in yards, but it's 4,354. So he completed 330 of 500 passes, 66% completion percentage, 4,354 yards, 29 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions, only got sacked. And this is the other thing, throwing as much as he did, 500 attempts, he only got sacked, dropping back 5 times this season. 5. That's 1 sack per every 100 attempts. Yeah, you'll take that. That offensive line, again, putting up all those points, the unsung heroes, well, they're sung heroes, but that offensive line did a hell of a job. But yeah, 4,354 yards to close out the season. And then when we look at team-wise, Washington, number 2 in the country, yardage-wise, 521.7 points per game, only behind Tennessee's 538.1. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like what that young man has done. And again, transfer portal from Indiana, you look at it and man, to me, again, you look at numbers like that and it's not like in other conferences get lower conferences be like, oh, well, he's doing it here, or if he was playing. And again, you have the leading tackler in the country. I'm not picking on Old Dominion, but if you did it at Old Dominion, like, well, this is why, blah, blah, blah. Look, somebody that's that accurate that has done that much, how you're not in the talk for a Heisman, because you're at Washington, and you're not at Ohio State playing whatever, or Alabama playing whatever. And it's phenomenal season. He should win the Offensive Player of the Year award, though, in the college football awards, hands down. To me, there's a lot, again, and running backs have their awards, but I'm saying quarterback award won't win the Heisman. Michael Penix Jr. should be there with the season coming in with the new coach. And yes, he did have a little bit of a history with Kalen DeBoer. Don't need to get crazy into that, but that is that. So down goes. So Washington wins, Oregon loses. Washington's feeling pretty good. But then for tiebreakers, and it was crazy. I was looking it up, and I still don't understand. Yes, they didn't play each other this year, but Washington also needed Colorado to win. So, yeah, that's the one thing I don't get. But Colorado did not win. I'm just going to give you Utah crushed them 63-21. Buffs. Again, it is fun when you are good, and I love Boulder. But yeah, I mean, and then they went Maddox Kopp, quarterback. Actually, he played the game. He was 15-28 for Colorado, 123 yards, 1 touchdown. They did manage to rush the ball for 62 whole yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Anthony Hankerson had 1. Alex Fontenot had the other. But look, for Utah, it's all about Cam Rising. 17-19, only got to throw 19 passes. Well, he only attempted 19. Bryson Barnes, who actually won the game up at Washington State, came in. He was 4 for 5, 45 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. But Cam Rising, 17-19, 234, 3 touchdowns. Jaquindon Jackson, yes, another running back that has been, again, just in the stable of running backs in the Pac-12, although they were missing Tavion, I want to say. But anyway, Jaquindon Jackson, 10 carries, 117 yards, 11.7 a carry. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. Micah Bernard, 12 for 91 and a touchdown. And Jalen Glover, 13 for 62 and a rushing touchdown. They rushed for 383 yards. Colorado does have the worst rushing defense in the Pac-12. Not going to sugarcoat it. It's been that way. Dalton Kincaid, tight end, receiver, 5 catches, 102 yards, 20.4 per catch, 1 receiving touchdown. Thomas Yasmin, 1 catch for 41 yards. That was his long. It was for a touchdown. Money Parks, love that kid's name. Haven't got to say it enough this year, but Money Parks, 4 for 40 and a receiving touchdown. And Makai Cope, 3 for 34 and the 4th of the 4 receiving touchdowns for the Utes. They just absolutely dominate. This is insane. This is insane. 662 total yards to 185. We're just going to mic drop on that. Kyle Whittingham, again, his team being very disciplined, phenomenal. So they needed that. They didn't get that. Washington needed Colorado. But so Utah wins there, and that's upsetting for Husky fans. But again, very encouraging. New coach, you win 10 games. You're up top of the Pac-12. You're 7-2 in conference play. Your only losses to UCLA. Who did they lose to? It was UCLA in conference play, and so only 2 losses on the season. Oh, ASU. See? Because they just cannot play in Tempe. So UCLA and ASU are their 2 losses. Common opponents is a tiebreaker. So the easiest one is common opponents. Washington lost to ASU. Utah beat ASU. And they both have the same conference record, and that's that. But Washington beat Oregon. Utah lost to Oregon. Either way, Utah's in the Pac-12 championship game. But the next game, yes, near and dear to my heart, the Territorial Cup, as you know, The Sun Devils had the last 5. They won 5 in a row. Herm Edwards, when he was here, never lost to Arizona. Todd Graham had won that last one, and then Herm won the next 4. It's very, very satisfying. Very satisfying. But hey, got to give credit where credit is due. I said Arizona was getting better this season. Defensively, yes, they still need to make bigger strides, as does, ASU. And Chris Cartman, unable to join us today. Again, a lot of breaking news, coach stuff. But we'll aim to get him on Friday talking about it. And we're also efforting, trying to schedule getting Coach Dillingham on the show as well. So aiming for that. But to the Territorial Cup, Arizona won. Yes, see, I can say it. U of A won. It pains me. It hurts. It will hurt until the game next season. But, I mean, you look at this game, and Trenton Bourguet had a heck of a game. 37-49. I mean, he sprayed it on the all over the Arizona secondary. But 37-49, 376 yards, 3 touchdowns, did throw 2 interceptions. The last one being, unfortunately, the most costly, as they're going down for either a tying field goal, force overtime, or the winning touchdown. But he did have 2 interceptions. He did get hit on that play, and the ball, again, lost its didn't have really too much steam on it, and the Wildcats able to intercept it. But still, I mean, 37-49, 376, 3 touchdowns. Valade, 24 carries for 97 yards on the game. 2 rushing touchdowns. Again, just being that X factor. He got dinged up early, but didn't affect him. They checked him out. He was able to come back in the game. And yeah, the Devils rushed for 161 yards. Pretty good, right? Yeah, pretty good. Except for the Wildcats, who Jaden Delora, this is the first game all season he did not throw a touchdown pass. He was only 12 for 23 for 200 yards, and he had 1 interception. Roe Torrance picked Delora off. But Michael Wiley, man, well, you want to get MVP of the Territorial Cup? Have 12 carries for 214 yards. Yeah, let that one sink in too. 12 carries for 214 yards, averaging 17.8 per carry, 3 rushing touchdowns. One of those was a 72-yarder in which he busted off, got to the second level very quick, and then just headed to the end zone. But Michael Wiley, 12 carries for 214 yards. 214 of the 280 yards the Wildcats rushed for, Michael Wiley had. And 3 touchdowns. Jonah Coleman had a rushing touchdown as well, as did DJ Williams for Arizona. Receiving wise, I mean, Gio Sanders, this kid, every pass he caught was either a touchdown or a first down. Insane game for Gio Sanders. 8 catches, 120 yards for the Sun Devils receiver, and 1 touchdown. Elijah Badger, another 8 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Conyers, the rebirth of the tight end in the ASU offense, 10 catches, 76 yards, and the third of the 3 receiving touchdowns for the Sun Devils. Unfortunately, the interception, Trenton Bourguet had a fumble and lost it. Tevin White fumbled, and Javen Jacobs on a special teams play also fumbled. And and they lost all 3 of those. So very, very, very tough there. The Devils did have 1 sack, 2 tackles for losses. Arizona, 2 sacks, 8 tackles for losses. The advantage there. But, I mean, rivalry came just back and forth. I mean, it was 7-0 Arizona at the end of 1. It was 14-10 ASU at halftime. Then it was 31-28 going into the 4th. Each team, scored 1 touchdown, but with that 3-point advantage, U of A gets the victory, 38-35. Again, neither team going to a bowl. The Devils with their worst winning percentage since 1946 at 3-9. The Wildcats 5-7. And again, it's not even poking fun. I said they improved all year. Defensively, yes, you're going to start needing to shore that up. You can't have. I mean, again, ASU, I thought they would be the team rushing the ball for 280 yards, considering what Oregon and Utah did against Arizona and just teams running the ball. Even UCLA, they beat UCLA, but UCLA, it's not like they didn't run the ball on the Arizona defense. So that defense needs to be shored up. But for Jedd Fisch to go 5-7, get the Territorial Cup, little momentum for Arizona. Again, 3-6 in conference play. And you'll say to me, you're just poking fun. No, yes, it is an under 500. It's a losing record. But for what it's been down there the last 5 years, for those that don't know, just go back and look at the Pac-12 standings. Don't look game by game. Look at the Pac-12 standings the last 5 years up to this season. Coming into this season, go look at what the Pac-12 standings were and how bad it got for U of A. The one little plug I'll always take is they lost the Territorial Cup 70-7 to Arizona State. Arizona lost 70-7. Just let that sink in. Teams put up 70. They're usually giving up more than 7 points. So, yeah. But look, Kenny Dillingham in his head coach. He was an offensive coordinator at Oregon this last season. He's been with Mike Norvell. Again, he's an ASU alum. He's a local. He's an Arizona native. And at 32 years old, the youngest Power 5 head coach. So he will take over. We will see what the offenses will do. Because, look, you look at the leaders in the country this year. Tennessee was a 1 at 538.1. Washington, they were second, 521.7. UCLA third, 507.9. And by a tenth of a yard, Oregon 4, 507.8. Oh, and then USC, a very slouching 506.6 yards per game. Yeah, nobody wants to schedule these teams. Chip Kelly's going nowhere. Kellen DeBoer came in. Obviously, Dan Lanning here and Lincoln Riley at USC. So, yeah, come play us. If we lose, I will tip my cap to you because you actually played a at a conference game that didn't involve a school that is directional or Austin P. Sorry, Austin P again, but it's just on the top of my head. But yeah, when you look at, and I mean, Arizona yardage wise in the country, I mean, not bad. 462.4 yards per game for Arizona. And Utah, I mean, a little bit above them at 467.7. So, yeah, it's again, but for Arizona to look at that, to be in, let's see. Yeah, that's you're in the top 20 in the country. Actually, 22. Sorry, you're 22 in the country in total yardage. So yeah, that's very, very huge for the Wildcats. So, but you got to shore up that defense because it was again tough sledding to that level. But lastly, I want to get to Notre Dame USC. It was phenomenal. Caleb Williams, it's all the talk. He did strike a Heisman pose after a touchdown. Rushing touchdown. Like I said, he did have 3 rushing touchdowns. But 18-22, 232 yards, 1 passing touchdown. The Trojans, 39 carries, 204 yards. See, Chip Kelly's pass and Lincoln Riley, it's all pass. If you're running the ball, you're going to keep running the ball. And they get 39 carries, 204 yards, 5.2 a carry. Again, every other handoff a first down. Caleb Williams had 3 rushing touchdowns. Raleek Brown had the 1 rushing. Jordan Addison getting back into the swing of things, but in 18 total receptions and 232 yards. He had 3 for 45. Did Addison. Lake McCree had 2 for 37. Mario Williams, 4 for 37. Taj Washington, 3 for 34. So, yeah, I mean, 232 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. That was Taj Washington's. But, yeah, when you're running the ball like that, Caleb Williams and Notre Dame, Drew Pine, 23-26, 318 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, USC's defense, again, they have had their moments, and they've gotten stronger all season. They can't be had anymore. You better take advantage of your opportunities. And early on, Notre Dame did that. I mean, it was a 17-14 game at halftime. It was it was a 17-7 game at halftime. USC was up. Then it was 24-14 going into the third, and SC outscored them 14-13 in the fourth, but still enough of a cushion there, 38-27, comfortable lead to USC. Again, you never felt that they weren't in control of the game. And Notre Dame, I mean, they made plays. They had their moments. They had 2 sacks, 8 tackles for losses. USC 2 sacks, 4 tackles for losses. But what Caleb Williams did, again, this young man needs to be in New York for the Heisman. Whether he wins it or not, we'll see. But yeah, and I want to give. So they get the victory. They're in the Pac-12 Championship game. Zach Charbonnet, my guy, UCLA held on to beat Cal 35-28. Outscored them 11-7 in the fourth quarter. Also, goose egg Cal in the third quarter. But Zach Charbonnet, another 24 carries, 119 yards, and a rushing touchdown. It is got to give a shout out to this young man, as when you look at rushing wise, again, he missed the game against ASU, and he didn't play, whether it's disciplinary or not. 13th in the country is Zach Charbonnet, 1,359 yards. And I mean, on 285 attempts as well. It's 1,331 yards, 13 rushing touchdowns, averaging 4.7. Charbonnet had 195 carries for 1,359 yards, 7 yards per carry, 14 rushing touchdowns on the season. And I mean, yeah, you're averaging 7 yards per carry. It's just, and what he did receiving wise too. I mean, yes, Bijan Robinson out of Texas had a huge year, but Dwayne McBride, who from UAB, 233 attempts, 1,713 yards, 19 rushing touchdowns. Chase Brown from Illinois, he led college football in attempts 328 times. Chase Brown touched the rock, 1,643 yards, 5 yards per carry, and 10 rushing touchdowns for Brown. But yeah, man, Zach Charbonnet, I mean, he doesn't miss that one game, and you figure it's say it's even another 100 yards. That would put him at 9th in the country, low 100 yards, right? So he'd be at 1,459, and he'd be at 9th in the country. So again, he would have a chance to be in the top 10, but I mean, again, being at a 13 and what he did receiving wise as well too. So want to give a shout out to him. Look, we'll be back on Friday breaking down the Pac-12 championship game as USC taking on Utah. Ooh, went overtime a little bit. Sorry, didn't call a timeout. No, USC will be taking on Utah. That game will be Friday night. It's at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Yes, home of the Raiders. It will be rocking there Friday night as USC tries to redeem their only conference loss of the season and their only loss of the season. So, yeah, I mean, that 11-1, that one stings because they lost at Rice-Eccles in Utah 43-42, and Utah deserved to win that game. So, Utah can punch them in the mouth again. We know what Utah did to Oregon twice last year. Will it be high scoring? Will it be tough for them to stop the running game? And Travis Dye, who did not play against Notre Dame, we will see if he is back. But we'll get to that on Friday. USC, Utah in the Pac-12 championship. I want to thank everybody on Sideline Sports, at Sideline Sports, obviously, and my guy Eric Wilson. Of course, we'll see you tonight, the Sports Arena, 10 o'clock Eastern, when you're checking out some Monday Night Football. Again, catch us live on Sideline Sports 1. Again, but just check it out, the Sports Arena. Check us out. So I'll see you tonight. Going to get out of here. I'll see you Friday. Again, enjoy Monday Night Football. Enjoy conference. And we'll talk conference championships too this weekend, but this Friday, but mostly Pac-12. And like I say, even though they lost, yes, as always, forks up. Congratulations to Coach Dillingham for getting the job at ASU and his staff, bringing in some interesting staff as well. I'll see you Friday here on Pac-12 Preview.